I'm here with Bernie Laurie, who is Sussex Police's Financial Abuse Safeguarding Officer. And we're going to talk all things fraud today. So, hi Bernie.
Hi.
Fraud, what does fraud mean, and what sort of types of fraud do you see?
So fraud can take any guise, really. It's basically somebody trying to deceive somebody. So we will see them being impersonating. People will impersonate the police, the bank on the phone. They will pretend to be someone they're not, and they'll do anything to exploit people for money. So we see them taking people's identity. We see them taking over people's computers and moving money around remotely. So it really can take a number of different guises.
Yeah. And we've heard quite a bit about romance fraud as well. What does that look like?
So romance fraud is one of the most hideous crime types, really, because it plays on the victim's emotions, and it really does target the most vulnerable. So often perpetrated online, so somebody will get talking to somebody on a dating site, and then it will turn out the person they're talking to and have ultimately fallen in love with isn't the person that they say they are, and ultimately they're just a scammer trying to get as much money from that person as possible.
So it's all driven by people wanting to get money off you for various reasons?
Yeah, the fraud is for a financial gain, but of course it has a bigger impact than just the financial impact on the victim.
And who can be a victim of fraud?
So anyone can be a victim of fraud, really. Fraud is almost half of all reported crime, so really it's the most likely crime to target any of us. So we just need to be safe, whether we're online, on the telephone, in person. You can be targeted in any way.
So talk about some of the good stuff that Sussex Police, that you've led on with Sussex Police to tackle this.
Okay, so one of the big initiatives we have is the banking protocol, which is really where the bank are encouraged to phone the police on 999 if there's somebody that's vulnerable inside the branch, basically in the middle of a fraud, about to make that transaction or withdrawal, often with the scammer perhaps parked outside if it was a rogue trader or something like that. And over the last 12 months, we've saved over £2.5 million for people.
£2.5 million saved in just the last year?
Yeah.
Wow. In Sussex?
In Sussex alone.
Wow.
And that really is quite a good initiative to show that we are doing something. We can't always find the suspects, we can't always arrest the suspects, but if we can stop the crime from happening when otherwise it would carry on. So that's amazing. A really good intervention.
Yeah. And then you've got, I've seen it, the little book of big scams.
Yeah, so the Little Book of Big Scams is a great product that we've been using for a long time. It goes through multiple editions as the frauds change. But what we have just done with the version 5 is we've had it transcribed into Braille. So we're the first force to do that, making that accessible to people who really do need to know that advice. A really vulnerable group, and we've now got that out in libraries across West Sussex, but in particular, and that's really a helpful resource.
But that's amazing. You said you're on the 5th edition, so it just shows you how many scams, how many frauds there are going around, that you've had like 5 editions of this book.
Yeah, so scams change the whole time, and whether there's a current thing that fraudsters will just pick up on and exploit, whether it was COVID, whether it was cost of living crisis, things will just move and change as different trends come forward.
Sure. And we've also got fraud case workers. So what do they do?
So our fraud case workers are employed by victim support and funded by yourself, and they are an absolutely fantastic resource which actually frees up police officer time and PCSO time by giving that additional support to victims who actually need it the most.
So, you know, how could somebody protect themselves from being a victim for this? Because you said that anyone can be a victim.
Absolutely. So it is a really difficult one, because whatever you're doing, somebody could be trying to defraud you. So you just really, we always say, if something looks too good to be true, then it probably is. So we would always say, stop, take 5, listen, check everything, and just talk to friends and family, because we always find 2 brains are better than 1. So if somebody is trying to exploit you or groom you and convince you and deceive you, then if you can stop and check some of those checkable facts before, like perhaps phoning on a number that you know rather than the number they gave you, not click on a link search something up yourself and make sure, because anybody can be anyone they want to be,
sure.
Because they can hide behind that identity.
And we don't like to be rude, do we? It goes against our natures. But if you've got somebody on the phone and you're not sure, put the phone down on them. If it's that urgent, they'll ring back, and it gives you just breathing space, doesn't it?
Absolutely, and I think that's it. But we open the door to cold callers, we pick up the phone to cold callers.
And did cold callers, does that still happen in Sussex?
We're seeing that a lot in Sussex, particularly at the moment this winter, with a lot of roofing companies or not companies.
Knocking on the door asking if you want work done.
Yeah, or telling them they need work doing.
Classic old scam, but still
rife.
Yeah.
But one that the banking protocol will pick up on a lot of the time, when somebody's in trying to get a big sum of money for a building work.
Well, clearly you've got a job that keeps you busy.
Absolutely.
And thank you for taking the time to tell us all about this, as we're sort of looking at fraud this week anyway. So great, and keep up the great work.
Thank you very much.